I'm with the most wonderful person ever. And today we've got the best, strongest training.
Oh yeah, I'm older than you, I'm not sure if I can do this, but
make
how's
you
that?
Yeah.
Should have warmed up.
Training again.
Done some stretches first.
I'm with Alisdair Hogarth, who's one of the best pianists ever. He's You're welcome.
Check is in the post.
Anytime. I know you're really big on technique.
Yeah, I love talking about it and thinking about it.
You
probably realise that.
I know. You've like game changed my technique.
Okay.
So, anytime. What I want to know is if someone was kind of just starting out at music conservatoire, what are the 3 technical exercises you'd recommend them start on to get them going? 2 minutes per exercise.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, I like stuff like this.
I know.
I love a challenge.
Such a nerd.
I'm such a dork. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would say, I think the thing I would sort of say before I give the exercises is that as a general kind of rule of thumb, I think it's good to try to practice everything in every way possible. So that goes for exercises or pieces, like just be really experimental. And I think sometimes if you don't even know why you're practicing something in a certain way, that's still cool.
Okay.
And especially if it feels difficult that way. So if you're like, changing the order of notes in a passage, that's going to have an effect in some way. And I think the more ways you practice something, the more likely you are to access the way that's going to be good for you to approach it. Because I think there's a tendency in piano teaching sometimes, and I'm sure I've been guilty of it in the past, of saying to a student, well, this is the way to do it. This is how you do this technique. And it might work for me, but it doesn't work for everyone. And it depends on your structure and how you're built and whether you're hypermobile, if you've had injuries before, all this kind of stuff. So I would say if you give yourself tons of options, your body, if you trust it, will just kind of like decide.
Okay.
But only if you've given it the option. So I would say before you do any of the exercises or apply them to pieces or whatever, I think that's quite important.
Okay.
The only thing that I think is a non-negotiable is you want to keep your joints in neutral.
Okay.
So I wouldn't, for example, practice for like an hour like with a high wrist. Or I think that might be a bit, You also look weird. Which is another reason not to do it. But really, I think anything that's an extreme for your body for a long period of time is probably less of a good idea. Okay. So 3 exercises. I would pick firstly exercises that swap between extensions and contractions.
This is so good.
So
this is the good stuff, guys.
Because you don't want to be like either like that the whole time or like that the whole time.
Okay.
So I'm really into simplicity. I think sometimes with technique and technical exercises we get a bit complex. And even, I think, that dreaded, can I do it, the hand on the I hate this exercise. I love exercises, but I hate this one.
It's just not a vibe.
It's not a vibe.
It's not a vibe.
It's not cool.
It's not good.
It's not clever.
Yeah.
He's let all of us down.
You heard it here first.
But I do feel it's not a pattern that appears much.
Yeah.
Unless someone like Shostakovich is quoting Hannon to take the mickey, which does happen. So it's good for that.
Yeah.
But I'm probably going to get some feedback. But
haters gonna hate.
For me, it's almost more useful to just do a standard pattern. Do that in loads of different ways. And experiment with it.
Exactly.
You're much more likely to have.
I'm about to say, you're more likely to
You're much more likely to have that than.
We're about to go into the club there.
Yeah, I mean, like. It doesn't happen so much. So I think like functional exercises are often quite simple.
Yeah.
Especially if you're thinking of the classics and you're talking about.
Like
someone,
Taylor Swift.
I did some exercises once, based on Charlie Puth.
Yeah, I know. I remember
the repeat notes.
Yes, yeah.
The Spice Girls one as well.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a good one.
So I guess you could use any.
Yeah.
That's actually a really important point. I think it's often easy to get obsessed with which exercises shall I use then, not Hannah. So which ones are the best? And really, that's maybe not the question to ask, but maybe how can I practice these exercises and these patterns? I mean, you could take just that pattern, which is the most simple thing in the world, and do it. You could do. And then of course do it in different keys
Yeah.
with the same fingering. You could do the minor. Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. But it's a simple thing.
Yeah,
But if you
so
keep
good.
the same fingering for the different keys as well, that will put your hands in slightly awkward positions, but I think useful ones.
Yeah.
So I'd say, I'm not really giving you specific exercises, but hopefully this is the kind of thing. If I had to pick specifics, I'd say for a contrasted position, just scales are really useful, but don't do them in the conventional 4 octaves way, because again, it's quite rare actually to find a 4 octave scale that ascends first.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you most commonly find scales that descend first, actually, if you think about it, like in Beethoven piano concertos, it always starts at the top. Then orchestra comes in, so I would do things like start at the top, go down, and then go back up.
Okay.
Some pieces are like scales 2 octaves apart, so you know, try that.
Yeah.
Try to do these scales like, you know. That'll make you hear it differently, and it'll feel physically weird, which is again a good thing. You're doing it in every way. Do it 3 octaves apart. Try it hands crossed.
Favourite exercises you ever gave me was playing black note scales, like C sharp major. Do you know what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
Where you play it in C major fingering and you go in and out of the black keys.
It's a banger.
That is a banger. I love that exercise.
It's a great.
Such losers.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's a good one. That is a
You need
good.
to get a life poster, honestly.
This is what I do on Friday nights.
I love that one.
A good one because it does put you in an awkward position. So you can pick any black key to start with and do major or minor scale on it using C major fingering, and it will force you to have to move in and out of the keyboard, which is a movement that we neglect.
100%.
Because it's really difficult to do. It does mean that when you go back to a key like D major or G major, that feels very easy.
Oh, definitely.
So if you want a really condensed down exercise to do in 2 minutes, I would do that one in all those aforementioned ways.
Yeah.
So that would be your like contracted position.
Okay.
Then I would do, for a wider spaced thing, I would do octaves, because the good thing about octaves is you can, well, A, they come up tons. It's a sort of, you have to be able to bust out some octaves. Yeah. It's good for parties, which is obviously the main thing.
100%.
But as a secondary use, you can use them in actual concerts.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think an octave thing, probably an arpeggio, because again, you wanted to, if you've got 2 minutes and you want to keep it minimal, simple fact, it's probably going to be harder to do leaps and be accurate than it is to do scales. So I would do like an arpeggio up and down, or do one of those funky arpeggios that skips a note and goes back to a note, like in both hands.
Yeah, nice.
And the good thing about octaves is they can be super adaptable. So you can do them as broken octaves in all ways, you know, that way with both hands, that way with both hands, in with both hands, out with both hands. 4 different ways just alone. What's not to love? And then you can do them, they're great for stamina if you want them to be. So they're good for accuracy, obviously, but if you then do them back to back. So I'd recommend with that you only do like 2 minutes at a time to start, because you don't want to, don't do like 20 minutes.
Yeah, they're tough. These exercises are kind of tough.
So even 2 minutes of continuous octaves, and I mean with no break. It's going to be really good for stamina. And actually 2 minutes is a really good amount of time to start doing any new technique or any technique that's sort of high octane, because it will minimise injury. It won't prevent it, but it will make it a lot less likely to happen. You know, you're much less likely to injure yourself in 2 minutes doing something difficult than you are doing it for half an hour over many days. And then I think I would do number three.
What would it be?
It would good poetry.
I know. Leader.
Yeah, I would think I would do a thirds exercise, so like a double notes thing, because coordination. So we've done like finger agility or finger strength, which could be just a simple 5-finger exercise or scales or whatever. We've done octaves, which ticks the box of an extension, gets the hand open, so you're not in a constant open or closed position. That works on stamina. Broken octaves are good for stamina, actually, incidentally. So if you find the stamina thing too easy in 2 minutes, you could do broken octaves in the same way. So that's really effective in loads of different ways. But none of those really address coordination in a really specific way. So you can do a thirds exercise, and a really good one for this if you take any triad, I'll do it in C because C is just an easy triad to sort of locate. Where's middle C? Could you just show it? So it's this triad. So I'm playing C, E, and G, and you hold those 3 notes down, and you tap the D and the F with fingers 2 and 4, and you start by doing that, and then you hold 2 and 4 down, and tap 1, 3, and 5, which is harder, and then you interlock them. And I know I said it's a thirds exercise, but that's great prep for the coordination to do a simple, I say simple, to do, which comes up everywhere. I think like Brahms' second piano concerto, it's all over the place in piano writing.
And you do a lot of vocal repertoire as well, because that's obviously what I like specialise in. All the opera reductions and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's littered with them. So
100%.
So I think it's all very well doing, like people often do scales in thirds, and that's great, but if you can't do this without going, there's no point in doing a whole scale of it until you've sorted out that coordination, and I think that exercise sorts that out. So I would say those are my 3.
Nice.
And it gives you a nice combo of contractions, extensions, chords, single notes.
That's great.
So that's what I do.
I am a collaborative pianist. If someone, say, who was following my account was just starting on their postgrad studies or maybe even an undergraduate collaborative, what 3 pieces would you suggest they start learning now as like investment pieces?
Okay.
Do you get what I mean?
Totally.
For the future that might come up a lot, but they're very difficult or something, I don't know.
I mean, anything that's difficult that comes up a lot is worth doing. But I would say the ones to prioritise are the ones that it's hard to learn quickly. Because I think in our sort of area of chamber music, which is vocal, the likelihood of you having to do a gig at short notice is slightly more than other areas in many respects.
Agreed.
And there's certain key pieces that are a nightmare to prepare quickly, and you just can't push your muscles quickly, and one of those is Erlkönig.
Of course.
You cannot, unless you're, I think, practicing that almost every day for a long period of time, you can't just rush that. So I would say that's an essential piece to get off the starting blocks. But I would say definitely when you're in the sort of thick of your career and you're doing a lot of concerts and performances or playing for classes at conservatory or whatever it might be, that's a really good one to have in your fingers at all times, because it means that even if it's in a different key, because it's the it's the repeated octave nature of it that makes it really difficult. So even if you've learned it in G minor but have to do it in E minor, your muscles will be conditioned to do that movement at least. So I would say I would put that in with my exercises and sort of practice that every day, so that if I had to do it in a week's time, I don't have to just either say no or push through it, because I've heard so many people try and push through it, and that's sort of when you can get an injury. And sort of thinking of piano health and the safety of your muscles and all that kind of stuff. I think that's quite important. So I'd say Erlkönig's one of them. It's difficult in other ways is Spring Waters. Bit of a nightmare. Absolute banger.
Lol.
But pretty horrendous. Primarily because it juxtaposes lots of different very hard techniques back to back. So you're sort of it's like the triathlon of piano music. You're kind of jumping between arpeggios, sort of broken arpeggios. Then you've got fingerwork patterns. Then you've got, I think, a lyrical section. Then you've got chordal stuff interspersed with that. And it's not always simple chord kind of. And it's not always 4-part chords. It's sometimes in triads, in inversions, which are quite tricky. So you're sort of constantly moving between things, and then you have to finish with that amazing sort of octave bonanza at the end, which you'd be really good at if you're doing your 2 minutes a day on exercise. In terms of essential stuff, so this is getting away from the idea of sort of acrobatics at the keyboard, to give you like a musical one, just to balance it.
Good,
I would say the play act to Dichterliebe, which is probably one of my favourite pieces of music. It's an absolute banger.
Absolute banger. But true.
It's even nicer than S Club, and that's the bar is high. But
true. Reach for the stars.
That play is the sort of bit where in a gig I think it's easy to feel it approaching and think, right, I've got to deliver this to an absolutely silent concert hall. They're sort of waiting for it in a way. And it's obviously emotionally an amazing moment.
Yeah,
but you do, I guess, feel that slight thing of, I'm treading a path that many have tread before me. And then the next thought is, don't screw this up.
For sure.
So that, I'd say that one for sort of balance, of course, and I think its difficulty is loads of difficulties, like pacing it and shaping it, but voicing it and peddling it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great study in that kind of thing. So I think any of the big cycles like that as a whole are worth doing.
100%.
But
so like Winterreiser.
But I think particularly that play out. Definitely that play out. Can I ask you a question?
Go on.
So I'm interested to ask you a question.
Yeah, ask away.
Because I think one of your many talents is you're really good at connecting with your audiences, either in the gig or on socials or whatever it might be. And I think for me that sort of really exemplifies a modern day musician.
Cool.
And I wondered what your thoughts are on the way music's going and how we connect with audiences in the way that you're already doing, but what do you think is effective communication to our potential audiences, and how can we kind of garner it?
I want to begin with saying I've just read 2 amazing books by someone you put me in touch with, called David Taylor.
Oh yes,
yeah,
he's a legend.
He's such a ledge.
The Forbes 30 under 30.
He's honestly amazing. But
I'm still waiting to be put on the Forbes 50 under 50.
Let that go. But, okay,
it's not,
the 100 under 100. Okay,
yeah.
stop.
Sorry, back to you. Back to you.
So yeah, I've just read David's 2 books, and I thought the thing I really got from them, and like some other things I've been listening to at the moment, are to be really strong on your own path. When I was studying, I remember I felt really, I'm going to say compelled to try and be more like my colleagues. And I felt like everyone was trying to do the same thing all the time. They were all trying to win the same competition, which is absolutely fine. But I just thought that's not natural to me as an artist. So I thought I've got to start doing my own thing here. And my thing is I am a trained actor as well. And that has a big bearing on my performance, because I always think of the art of theatre when I'm doing any sort of performance. So with that in mind, I always try and treat my concerts more like a theatrical experience rather than me just getting up and playing the piano.
Like a show? Yeah.
From like the minute, especially if I'm curating my own concerts, I'll try and organise an after party. Do you know what I mean? I'll try and make it all a bit more like a whole evening experience. And I think sometimes that's something that is slightly maybe not considered so much. People worry so much about the playing, which I think, obviously, yeah, that's understandable, but I do also think it should just be a given factor. And I just think people miss the art of...
The art of entertainment.
Yeah, the art of entertainment, the art of wearing, you know, like a show-stopping outfit, the art of how you even walk in.
The addition of social media, I know that's not a particularly recent thing, but it's an interesting medium, because it's sometimes quite difficult to translate what you're doing online to real life concerts. So,
definitely.
And I think you do that really well, and I think your stories and everything are really natural in a way that mine couldn't possibly be. Because I'm of that generation that would have to like rehearse it like 30,000 times. But what are the ways you see of moving forward? Like, are there any ways that you think we could do more?
I think people need to read David's books for a start, because they backed up a lot of what I was feeling.
What would you say to someone who's like just started music college or is in their post-grad maybe at music college and about to leave? How would you say they approach the question, do I go a very sort of conventional route, which is totally cool, or do I go, you know, very much sort of my own thing and curate something that's very unique to me? You know, that's scary, because you've got to like create something really from scratch. You've got to almost create that bit of the industry. You can't just sort of jump into it. What would you say to people like that are in 2 minds and they think, you know, do I want the safety of something that's a path that's well trodden, or do I want to go out on one a bit and risk, you know, some possible fails, but at the same time ultimately get to something maybe that's more me?
I would say nothing great and no great change will come from doing the same as everyone else. I think, like, if you think of everything really amazing that's ever happened historically, it's never come from like, I'll just do what everyone else is doing. But you've got to have a lot of belief in that, because there's going to be a lot of people who don't want the change, because that's very easy for them. they want to keep it the same because it works for them right now and it suits them, which is of course understandable and fine. But there's room for everything artistically. And I feel like people just need to be, you have to have a lot of conviction in what you're doing for yourself. And, post your things on social media. Don't worry about what other people are thinking. And just, as long as you know you're good at your instrument, you're a nice person to work with, and you've got a creative flair, I think what's going to stop you, quite frankly? But you're not going to get the change if you keep just doing what feels comfortable. You have to step out of your comfort zone at some point. But it is hard when you see everyone kind of doing the same thing. You think, they're doing quite well.
I think one danger I see is sometimes people wanting to be so risk-free that they're almost trying to think, well, what would the audience like the most? I think it's a really good question to ask. It's really good because you do have to serve your audience, I think. But at the same time, sometimes you can give them a better show if you really go for it on an idea and risk actually hard. I mean, I always weirdly always like a concert that I've given that's been quite divisive, because I feel like if like half the audience have loved it and half the audience have hated it, I feel quite good about it, because I feel like, that must have been quite a bold statement and a bold move.
Which is more important than...
I mean, I wouldn't like it if they all hated it. But at the same time, if it was sort of, if everyone loved it, I'd wonder, maybe it was a bit safe. And that's fine, that's totally cool. I never knock the standard stuff. I love doing the standard concert too, but I think if anyone's worried about that, I would also...
I think you've got to be okay with
agree with you on that.
You've got to just be okay with like doing your own thing. I think the social media is hugely underrated. I think we need to just move with the times now. We're in social media times, whether we like it or not, we've got to go with it a bit more, I think, rather than just waiting for things to fall into our laps, especially, I might be wrong about this, Alisdair, but I feel like it's potentially more competitive now.
Or at least the competition is really visible, isn't it? You really see it. I think this is where David's books are really 100% brilliant, amongst other areas of the industry, but that the sort of importance of socials and not neglecting that aspect, which is a modern day thing you really do need to address.
And things like you and David have both said, for example, about making sure things are long and
always ranting about it.
I know, but it's so true, and it's like just these little things that make a big difference. I've always just been a person who, if I like someone, I'll get along with them and it's a natural vibe, and I don't work with people because I feel I should or I shouldn't. I work with people who I feel artistically we vibe, and there's something fulfilling in that for me. Done everything on an authentic ground rather than trying to do things because I feel I should. But
I think what's great about your socials is that you're the same person on it as you are off it, and I think that can often be a bit of a stumbling point for people who create this sort of personality on the gram, and then you speak to them and it's kind of like not quite the same experience.
For sure. Agreed.
Right, I'll have a think. Have you got?
I will ask you one now, just a fun one.
Okay.
What is your favourite starter? Yeah, this is something completely rogue now. And why?
Oh man.
It's hard, it's difficult.
Well, I like cheesy stuff in like every aspect of life. Like I like cheesy music.
You do cheesy jokes.
Cheesy jokes. So it probably has to be something quite cheese-based.
Okay, nice. Like one of those, they're like French cheese.
Oh my goodness, that would be amazing. That thing. Yes, that thing. That's what I would get. What was yours been?
Okay, so I think probably it'd have to be like some sort of like cauliflower, plus like a sauce. Do you know what I mean? Cauliflower, I'm really into like health and nutrition and stuff like that. I love cauliflower's really good for you. And tasty.
It's quite niche.
What, cauliflower?
I mean, to me,
Well, we'll put it to
I'm not judging you for it though.
It sounds like you are.
I'd go...
It sounds very judgmental to me.
If it's got cheese in it.
Cheesy cauliflower.
That's good. You're allowed to say that.
Drum chain again.